Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 81 of the Bonehead Podcast, where we talk all things Blood Bowl. Welcome back, I'm Ben, and once again I'm joined by Blood Tithe Ben. How you doing, BT?
Hello. I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
Not bad at all, and we have also joined by our 3D printer correspondent, Ian, Triple Power Triplo. Trips, how you doing today?
Not too bad, Benz. How you doing?
Benz.
Very good.
We were referred to the other day on YouTube as Ben and Ben, the Blood Bowl Men, and and I actually quite like it. I don't think we'll.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll go changing any logos or anything, but I did quite like that one. I thought that was quite good.
The Blood Bowl Men.
Yeah.
Is the new podcast name.
Well, you know, it's like Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men. No, it's Ben and Ben the Blood Bowl Men. I don't know. That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as someone said earlier in the week, it was good to see you both at club, but there was like 3 Bens in the room. It was far too many.
Yeah, 30% Ben. Potentially a little bit too much, Ben. Anyway, we are here to talk more Blood Bowl bits and bobs. BT, lay it down. What are we going to be talking on episode 31?
We're just going to be having a bit of a mega discussion, really, about, I think we call it Dungeons and Decisions.
Dungeons and Decisions, yeah.
Pretty much what we think about Dungeon Bowl, like how much do we need it, what we're hoping to get out of it. So.
Yep. Yeah, that is absolutely bang on. And the reason for that is because this episode is coming out on the 27th of November, and that's the day that the pre-order goes live for Dungeon Bowl. So if you're listening to this, Dungeon Bowl is available for pre-order, and we are going to talk you through why you'd want to get it, and if you would, and if you don't want to get it, what you have to do to go around getting into Dungeon Bowl anyway, because it is a fair chunk of cash. It may not be up your street, and there's definitely other ways to do it, because it is just another way to play. Anyway, let's bounce into Blood Bowl news. And we are back. So we've got a few bits of Blood Bowl news. The big Kickstarters have ended now. So the Ponga and Grebo just destroyed all targets known to man, basically. I don't know. I backed some stuff. I don't know what I backed anymore. I know money's gone, so that's good. And at some point it will be replaced with little resin blocks of joy. And that's something I'm very happy with. Did you guys go in on those Kickstarters?
I managed to resist that one, so
nice.
that was a no for me.
Well done. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I did. I backed the Ponga one.
Yeah, the Grebo Chalk team was awesome. The Ponga one was so varied. Like, they had very different strategies. I liked it. It was good. It gave you real choice. Still risky with the teams of legend.
But still got nice models.
Oh yeah, they're just too fun to play. Anyway, I thought we'd check in on a couple of the Kickstarters. We did look at these last week, I think, Ben. Or like 2 weeks ago. Last week, I don't know where it is anymore. What is it, 4 weeks till Christmas now?
I'd say that.
I got a little countdown on like behind my screen for like meetings at work. And when someone mentions Christmas, I will just fade it in to view, just so it will be behind my head up here. It will just be like 32 days till Christmas or something, as soon as someone starts complaining about Christmas, just to, you know, bring some festive joy. So the first one we're going to look at,
want to watch World Burns.
yeah, go full Joker. The Wraith Kings football team, we did check this one out last week. Now this is it's an STL situation, so if you've got a 3D printer, this is excellent. This is by Z-Axis, and this is the Black Souls Graveyard Fantasy Football team. So this is the one we did look at last week, where it's an undead team / a necromantic team, but everyone's kind of ghosty. So everyone kind of looks like Murmur Banshees, or like they're from Nighthaunt. I really like this. And I'm really...
It's cool. I think the models are really nice as well. Like they've really like oppressive looking skulls, lots of teeth and things like that. I just think it's really nicely designed.
It's proper gribbly, and they've done a superb job on their pledge. They're $4,500 against a target of 800 with 168 backers in there as well, which is
like
that's pretty great for a Blood Bowl thing. I mean, 168 backers is excellent. Now the value is pretty good because it's, what was it, 20 euros for the entire team and a bunch of star players, STLs, and I hope they are pre-supported. Some of them, they're varied sculpts. I like there's a couple of cartoony bits. You've got cheerleaders to go with it, markers as well. I like the markers. I know they're very simple. There's just little prone and stunned markers that look like they're 40mm rounds that just kind of go over the bases of your players. Seems really simple, but actually quite a useful thing.
Yeah.
I almost think they'd be better off cut in half. So just a semicircle that you can print and put next to a base.
Yeah. I use similar things like acrylic ones for that. So they're just like acrylic half circles that slot on a 40 or 32mm base.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, and that's really handy.
That's perfect. Trips, have you seen this Kickstarter? Have you been tempted by this one?
It's seen it, was tempted, haven't backed it yet, but it's still open, so there's still time to be sucked in by the last 48-hour email.
Yeah, I just love the skeletons in big boots, especially with the Dungeon Bowl news. There's going to be a need for like another undead team, I think, in my life. So these undead Kickstarters are definitely in the vein of what I'm looking for. And the other one is West Cross here. 3D printable fantasy football stadium and teams, STLs only. And this is by MG Picks, isn't it? Who's done some Blood Bowl bits before. And this is a monster of a Kickstarter. We've actually got some STLs to print out. I've printed some out. I had to support them myself. This will come pre-supported. And because I had to support them myself, I had a bit of a failure. So it's taken me a few days to go and redo it. Took them out today. Size-wise, a bit varied. The main crew, like the strength 3 dudes, they're a little on the small side. So I've got a print in right now with 110 and 120%. Quite frankly, I think that's to do with Games Workshop scaling up their models, because we've seen it from Ponga, haven't we? When they bring out these STLs, you print them off and they just look quite small. You have to scale them up to 110, 120% to get kind of Blood Bowl chunk to them. But, I mean, have you seen the stadium that comes with this?
About to say, the stadium is insane. That is ridiculously cool.
Yeah, just that looking at that map of how you print it out, it was like, whoa, that's like proper.
It's
thinking.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we've got like a sort of ruined Gothic cathedral with all. It's kind of like your old 40k Gothic ruins.
Oh,
but,
this is legitimately
like
40k terrain.
Yeah, it is. You can totally use it for 40k.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't even
I
considered
will
that.
totally be using it, not for Blood Bowl.
Now, I love the design of their players. Like, it's a full undead team. You've got zombies, skeletons, ghouls, mummies, wights, and it's got that cartoony element. It reminds me very much of the Pirates of Orc Bay, or the Orcs of Pirate Bay, or whatever it was called, because they got like that kind of slightly exaggerated features, but definitely not in a bad way. Like, this is really well done. The bundle with stadium and team is £36, and you get the entire stadium, all the stretch goals, and the team as well. And you get 4 different ghouls, 4 zombies, 4 skeletons, which, as you guys will know, if you've got a 3D printer, you mirror them, and you've got 8 of all of those. And the mummies and wights are just really well done models. Really cool. The ghouls are a bit weird, and I like them. They look like something from a Resident Evil video game. I think.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. They look like their faces remind me of mimics.
Oh,
They kind of have like mini mimic faces.
do you think? We're going to skip right ahead. I'm going to ask. Do you think we'll see mimics in Dungeon Bowl? Do you think they'll be in the
I
book?
hope so. Are they in the original?
No, gosh, no. No.
Oh, okay. Well,
No.
I really hope so, because that's such a dungeony, like, iconic thing to open your chest expecting to find your ball, and instead
I
you
think that, yeah, they'll have to be boneheaded in or house ruled in, depending on which way you
100%.
call it.
100%. I mean, we're going to be running a Dungeon Bowl tournament in May, so there's going to have to be mimics. Like, it doesn't even matter. We'll put them in there. We're going to go deep on the dungeon theme, on the D&D theme for that. So Ben, I'm going to leaning on you very heavily for this, as our resident D&D expert. So
Expert, I just buy all the source books because I've got a problem.
I know.
That's all
Hey,
it is.
I saw the look in your eyes when we were wandering around Salute, and you were like, "I just want to get a source book. I've got these source books on order." It's like a mad warlock. It was wicked. So definitely leaning on you. So there's an undead team, and then there's the thing called the Molokai, which are these just, I don't know. How would you describe them?
Describe them as my beachhead snotling team.
It is a counter as snotling team. They look like tiny Jawas. If the heads weren't in hoods, they were actually just massive Halloween masks. And they've got some dudes who are riding around on these ram things. You've got the big, I don't know, Oni looking guys. I printed one of those off. They're very cool as well. I hadn't seen the pump wagon. That was cool. So the Babuba. It's a really cool little style, and it is going to be a really fun team to have printed off. Those scale up just fine, which is pretty wicked. I'm a big fan of those guys. I love stunty teams, so having the extra stunties is just wicked. Paul in chat, I know, live while the Thanksgiving NFL is happening. I know. I thought, but it is only the Lions and the Bears, so it's okay. Otherwise, I would have had it on in the background. And I know that those are two NFC North teams, and I should massively care, but I really don't, because I'm really sorry, Bears and Lions fans. I'm really sorry. Like, it's like if there was a Goblin team playing the OWA, like, but a little bit less interesting right now, which is very sad.
Now I get it. The Blood Bowl reference helps.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was actual Lions versus Bears. I mean, that would be.
That would be really good.
That would be much better.
Yes.
And Liminality in chat as well with a little bit of a spoiler says, just as I start converting halflings, I wake up this morning to see the Ponga update. So we'll get to that one in just a second, because let's see if we've got any stretch goals here. We've got some tokens. We've got a token Molokai. We've got a cool coach with a ghost figure. Got a star player ghoul. The skeleton with chainsaw. I think that's already gone out, hasn't it, Trips? You've already printed that guy?
Yeah. It was a test print.
Wicked. I love that model. It's a very cool chainsaw. A cool little Bryce the Slice. Extra zombie, extra skeleton, and some skill rings as well for stretch goals if they make it. And I think they've basically made it now. Where are they up to? 2,500 of an 840 goal. Apparently, STL teams is the way to go. And they've got some great painted up versions. And Ben, they've got like the shots of the stadium. Oh, there's some cool raised floors. That'll be good for Dungeon Ball. They've got like these statues and things, and it properly does look like 40k. Like, very, very, very cool. Finalized painted team looks great. They've done a great job painting it up so you can see what the different things are. Very perturbed by the fact that ghouls have no eyes, but I think the design is brilliant. I really like what they're doing. I like you get two teams, and I'm actually very excited to see what these guys do next, because they've got a lot of cool stuff going on. Might have to have a chat actually and see. Right, so that is 12 days to go. Both these projects have still got a good life on them, so if you haven't backed them yet, you can bounce over and have a look. We did just want to check in on the Charlie Victor podcast as well. 210 backers, smashing it at £12,000 against this goal of 2,500. This is for the skill bands. Charlie Victor do phenomenal stuff, and they've got these kind of rubber skill bands you put over the bases to mark out what you're doing. They're very similar to the ones we're using in the Bonehead Championship from Willy Miniatures, except these are bespoke. They've got dodge written on, they've got guard written on. Really useful, so definitely worth having a look at. But we did look at these last time. This is new. So this is the Hungry Piranhas spoiler. Trips, you put this into the chat earlier, didn't you? You give us a quick rundown of this?
So this is the Ponga Patreon for next month. So this is the first half of the Halfling team. Very sea-themed, as we've seen, with trees and more to come next month. Or January, as well, it should be. So,
right, there's 8 halflings here. There's 2 catchers. One catcher is being attacked by a crab. The other one is being attacked by some kind of bird. Oh, a parrot, probably. Is that a parrot? Oh, we need... I'm going to declare that a parrot or an albatross.
I think it's parrot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say parrot with that. Got the beak.
So, let's do good, bad, good, shall we? Because I feel like that's an appropriate space.
I think we're all unanimous on this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, good stuff first. let's all go around the room and say one thing we like about this team. Let's start with Ben, with the halflings from Ponga.
Incredibly well sculpted. Like, as usual, from Ponga, it comes out with like S-tier quality. I mean, I find their stuff is really, if you like Games Workshop style, you will like Ponga style, because it's very the way they sculpt is very similar, very crisp detail, and very nicely detailed. Very heroic scale as well, so you've got like big heads and things. I think they look fantastic.
Yeah,
really, really good.
Trips, anything to add on that front?
I think just as Ben said, they look great. They look like they'll be fun to paint up. They've got plenty of character in, but aren't so different that they're not a united team.
Yeah, that's very, very, very fair. So I like the scale. Like, they look like they look like the older version of the halflings. Like, they look like Games Workshop halflings, just scaled up, which is befitting these days. So, like, they've got a good mass to them that I think will fit with the new halfling team, but they've got the kind of the farmer's hat and the armored breastplates of the old Games Workshop halflings. And for that, I absolutely love it. I just wish they weren't so bloomin' obsessed with pirates.
I know. They just love these nautical themes. I feel like they have someone on their sculpting team who like just makes such good pirate hats. Like, he was like brought in because he was asked to sculpt a pirate hat, and then they made this pirate hat. And they're just like, right, that's fantastic. What else can you do? And they're like,
more pirates,
just hats
and crabs. I could do great crabs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I mean, I love them, and I mean, if you happen to have a Blood Bowl stadium that's like a boat, like the Kraken Stadium,
you're
all these
well
teams
away.
would fit lovely. Yeah, if your league is out at sea, you might really enjoy having all your teams.
If you yourself
nautical,
are a pirate, you will love this team.
Yeah.
Now, I
did think of one thing that would work. It's if there was a College of Water, then you'd have a lovely theme across Ponga miniatures.
Yeah, there isn't, which is gutted. Although there's 3 out of 4 teams for the College of Life. Wood Elves they haven't done yet, but Halflings, Snotlings, and Nurgle they have done. So if you are a lifetime backer of Ponga, you can just print a College of Life team without the Wood Elves immediately. So, I mean, I love the style. The other thing I'm a bit, it's a shame, is I know I would have absolutely no problem paying £20 for a Blood Bowl team. Not a problem at all. That's just bang on. This is STLs, right? You're at that point reaching the same kind of cost as a Games Workshop team, and then you have to print it on top. But actually, it's fine because it's worth it, because you can mirror stuff, you can make them bigger, make them smaller. Like, it's just cool, and you can just print them. The distribution of it, I'm gutted there's not one tree man, because this team, they did this brilliantly with the Nurgles. There was 2 blockers, a goat, and a bunch of linemen. And actually what you could do is you could print off those rotters and stuff mirrored, and 2 goats mirrored, so that you could actually build a team with 1 month. And I guess that's why they don't spread them across. And I imagine it's because the tree men, whatever they're going to look like, are going to be very cool, because they are going to be cool. It's just, got to wait a whole month.
It's a bit cheeky. It is a bit cheeky. I mean, it'll really suck, actually, to get like a whole, like, as a Blood Bowl player, to be like, I want to play Halfling, so I'm going to buy a Halfling box that says Halfling team on it, and then not, realize you need some trees. That would suck.
Hey, imagine that.
Imagine a world where that
happens.
Oh
man, thank goodness they're not doing a Goblin team.
Yeah. No, but it's a bit cheeky. I can see why they split it up, and Patreon is already a really good deal. So like, sure, it's really nice. It would be quite nice if there was an alternative, if they had like an online store where you could just get the team rather than having to wait, because it makes your month kind of a little, like you said, it makes it a little bit redundant.
It's like, yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, oh, cool, I can print off Halflings, but I'm just going to wait till January.
Yeah.
So I've got the big guys. I mean, that's just not going to be true. I'll print this off as soon as I get it, because they're very cool and everyone loves painting up Halflings. And apparently they're quite hard to sculpt well, Halflings, because there are some garbage Halfling teams out there. And this has been really well executed, so I love it. Right, anything more to add on Ponga, Patreon, anything with that, Trips?
No, all good.
Why crabs? Why sea stuff? Every time. I cannot wait for them to branch out. I don't care what it is. I don't care what.
2022 is going to be all. I don't know. You said farmers. They're going to stick with that. It's going to be all farmer.
That would be
themed.
all right. I mean, what other theme could they do to death? What else is there that would be a bit lackluster?
Like undead.
Yeah,
I mean, like an undead wood elf team or an undead dark elf team, undead humans.
like an Egyptian theme or something like that. An Egyptian themed wood elf team would be a bit like, oh, so close, so close.
Yeah,
but we'd love it for the first 3 teams. It'd be by October we'd be getting bored again.
It'd be shark theme.
Oh well, the shark team was very popular, and Milton would be very happy. Right, I think that does it for news. So we will be right back with some hobby goodness, and then take a deep dive into Dungeon Bowl. Okay, let's talk hobby and games and buying and printing. Mr. Triplo, what have you been up to Blood Bowl wise?
So Blood Bowl wise, or sort of games. So 3 games now into the league, and I'm 2-1 with my Black Orcs.
That's fantastic.
And but I've discovered Black Orcs with Agility 4+. They are potential ball carriers and seem to be more reliable than the goblins.
They're just fine. Like the ogres, underrated ball carriers. Black Orcs don't even have Bonehead. So yeah, exactly right, Trips.
So and had a good game this week. Played Jack, who was leading the league with his million snotlings and hundreds of thousands of inducements that he had every game. But the grab really did work well against the snotlings.
Oh, it just cancels it out. I think is it not Luke who's running snotlings?
Luke.
Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, so played past the snotling down the line until he went splat.
Nicely done. So 2-1 with Black Orcs. Any decent players brewing up?
So I think 4 Black Orcs have got a skill up. So I've got 2 Mighty Blow and 2 Guards, and
Perfect.
I'm up to 9 SPP on a Goblin who I am saving desperately to A, keep the TV down, and B, to see if I could do something fun down the line.
What are you thinking with him? Sure hands?
Either sure hands, or I'm really tempted to try and go for a characteristic upgrade.
Oh wow!
Oh, the bravery.
Oh,
He'll be rewarded.
Just be brutal where you're like, oh, he's movement 7. But you can trade that down for a double, I guess, if you don't like it, and then just make him a bludger or dauntless or wrestle or something.
He'll just die anyway, so it'll be great for about 3 turns.
Break tackle would be good. Then he's kind of gets that +1 to dodge, although it's just not very often, is it? I don't know. I like it. I think that's brilliant, though. I'm really glad to see Black Orcs doing well. I love them. I love playing the Buccaneers in the Bonehead Championship. But you've gone with no troll. Have you got a troll yet?
No troll, but I do now have enough money for the troll. But I am tempted to just buy some more rerolls, because 6 Black Orcs and a troll leaves you very short of movement.
Oh, that is very true. But you just got to play them like Skaven and just go for it all the time, and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's what you want to see: a Black Orc falling over and killing himself on the dodge.
No, armor 10+. They're great. They're great. No, that's wicked Trips. BT, how about you?
So I'm only 2 games into league. I had a bit of a bye week last week. I don't think I actually talked about the first game, which I did play against Trips himself.
I didn't realise.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, so we kicked off the league together. It was a 2-1 victory to Black Orcs. Yeah, so fortunately, not too many lasting injuries. Though I only had 1 journeyman going into the second game, which was against Richard. And yeah, I won 2-0 against his Khorne team, playing the new Khorne.
Ooh.
Which I think was also the first time I've beaten Richard. I mean, he's a very good coach. So on reflection, I think that's the first time I've won.
Oh, that's wicked. Of course, you guys played down at Entoyment, didn't you?
Yes,
Yep.
Ian and I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's right near my work. So.
Okay, well, I will very quickly interject some great stuff. Liminality says, what about if Punga did ninjas? Like ninjas, dear God, I'd hate to see ninjas done to death. Yeah, I know. There's danger. You know what?
I'd quite like that.
You know what? Pirates not looking so bad. I'm happy with that. I love that. Henley says Luke is me. Luke is me. Jack got wrecked by the snots the week before. Nice. And Paul says, lucky to have birthday today. Oh, happy birthday, Paul. Been bought all the corn stuff I want and have money for Dungeon Bowl. Lost in space. Yeah, gotta hope there's no teleporter foul that fails. I love it. Right, so I got my first league game with Corn, and I went with 4 Seekers, 2 rerolls, 2 Gores, and that's it. That's everything you get for Corn. I went heavy with dedicated fans. I think I went 4 dedicated fans to kind of just try and generate more cash. And I ended up playing against Peter, and I was going into it, and it's Renegades, and I'm thinking, it's like there's only a few bad matchups with Khorne, and I've played against several of them now. I've played against Ogres, which is a very bad matchup for a frenzy heavy team because of the Noblars and everybody being stronger than you, and then Pact, and I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, like they've got an Edge 2+ dude, and they've got 3 big guys. He was running the classic triple, the classic trio of
the only way to run Pact. Yeah,
I don't know, man. I think you can get the Roger in there. It's dangerous. The troll, bless him, had a very bad game and just trolled all over the place. And I got away with it. It went really, really well. I fouled the Minotaur out early on.
Nice.
He got a blitz, went in, committed a bit hard, and then I surfed a couple of dudes and went crazy, and then got stuck in defensive turnover in the first half, and then ground down the pitch in the second half. It was really good. Had a couple of casualties and 4 knockouts, I think, in there going into the second half. But then he pulled off a superb 2-turn throw teammate touchdown. It was excellent. It was absolutely square perfect. So it was a victory, but it was not a 2-0. It was a 2-1, but I'm super happy with that. Anytime you get to see an Underworld throw teammate touchdown, it's just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And he played it perfectly. It was great to see. So I got some SPPs on my guys now. I got a Khorne Gore with 3 SPP, and I got another Khorne Gore with 7 SPP. So I'm really tempted to take 2 randoms on the 7 SPP guy just to try out some stuff.
I think you've got to.
It's got to be the way to go.
I can take 3 random skills across 2 Gores at that point and just see how things go.
Yeah,
for the podcast to try out some different skills. So Ben, you've played against Khorne now as well. What do we think? What do we think of the new roster?
I think at that low TV they really struggle. Like they just don't do themselves any favors. They've not really got the skills to like be really aggressive or like really dangerous. Like not having anyone with block is always tough to start off a league, especially if you've got some developed pieces. I mean, I had the advantage, I think, with nobility. I think they are quite a counter with the stand firm pieces.
Yeah.
It really, really screwed up Rich's game plan in a lot of cases. I mean, I was being generous, but I was constantly saying, that's got stand firm. Just remember the bodyguards. Because there were a couple of times he was going to blitz him, and I'm just like, yeah, I probably wouldn't. So it's... I think if you can suppress them and keep the Seekers out and keep them busy, I always try to mark them because I just know how big a threat they are. It's... He also didn't have much luck with a Bloodspawn. He ran the Bloodspawn, and that thing just kept failing its animal savagery, or is it Unchanneled Fury?
Unchanneled Fury. Kind of gets away with it. Yeah. I've not been impressed with the big guy. I know that on paper he's awesome, and I tell you what, as I lined up against Pact yesterday, I was like, I should have listened to Richard. I should have run the big guy, and at least I would have had an opportunity to go Kaiju versus Kaiju, use that claws, use that mighty blow, and do some damage. But he's unreliable. Fun, but unreliable. And this roster, it rolls on the dice. This is a heavy frenzy team is very much remind me of goblins. Like if stuff works out, you are going to have a stonking game. If it doesn't, you are going to get stomped. And I think Rich was running 1 reroll build as well, wasn't he?
He was, that went pretty fast.
Oh, that's brave.
Yeah.
To be fair, I was running 2, and by the end of turn 1, I had none. Because it was like, and this 2-die block is both down. Like, that's fine. Got a reroll, no problem at all. Got a push. I was like, that's fine. Second block, skull. I'm like, can't take that. Reroll, both down. I was like, oh, goodbye rerolls. So it's an interesting one. There's not a lot in it. The Seekers are great, but you're right, Ben. Against nobility, like, who are they going to? Well, you know what? We've had this in the championship, haven't we? With the Rat Ogre up against nobility. With who are you going to blitz? Like, the throwers. That's it.
Yeah, he had a couple of 2-die blocks against the blitzers as well, but the block just beat them. So like, at that point as well, they really do struggle.
Yeah,
and when you can fend away the
that's it
frenzy, it's just like, that's not really much.
Takes away your frenzy completely. And you know what? I love this. I love that Khorne comes in and doesn't ruffle stomp over everything. Like, actually, it's landed, and Ogres gave it a good matchup. Sidestep stuff is going to give it some good matchup. Fend and the Stand Firm that they've got out there, going to give it a tough matchup. And honestly, I think Black Orcs are probably going to be a bit of a toughie as well, one way or another, because of all that strength 4. So Seekers lose out. Like, it's good. Black Orcs are going to be a tough fight against a vanilla Khorne team. Because you don't get that. Yeah, and I think that's brilliant. I am terrified of running a Skaven team into a Khorne team, though. I think you'll win, but I think you'll lose almost everybody.
If the dice go in their favour, and I think also if they're like quite late into the league, I think they're going to become really dangerous. Once they start getting blocked, that's going to be scary. Block frenzy is insane, and when they're not up against a team that can manage it, like you said, like nobility, I think it can be really, really, really oppressive. Poor Richard, actually, in our game, we didn't get much luck with the Seekers. I mean, I casualtied one pretty early on with the Blitzer, and at the start of the second half, we got a vicious ref, which sent off a Seeker.
Oh, man.
So that really sucked. And I think one tripped over and hurt himself as well. So.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, I think it might be when he blocked the Blitzer and went down. So it was like a, self-casualty. Yeah, it was not that great.
It's still so good to have a new team and a new challenge, and that's it. Everybody's now played a game that we would never have played before, and it creates new Blood Bowl challenges, which is one of the things I'm most excited about with Dungeon Bowl Landing, is because there's 8 new teams in it. Like, regardless of how you think about it, and the way they're structuring the teams is very interesting, there's 8 new teams. So we've got Khorne now, and then there's a whole bunch more coming, which is really cool. So the hobby-wise, I painted the Khorne team red, started painting bronze armor, and decided I really hated the color scheme, and then ran out of hobby time. So I kind of need to have another go and try a different scheme. I mean, I tried to use our patented tournament tips and just start with one colour and work it out. But surprisingly, bronze and red is not a great combo, because bronze, red and flesh tone there's no contrast there. It just turns into this kind of sunburnt mess.
I'd probably go for more of the brass. The brass and red works, so maybe take it more yellower. What
did I use? I can't remember what paint I used now, but it was quite a brassy colour, but I'm going to experiment and try that. Ben, I can see that you're painting right now. What have you been painting?
Still working on Necrons. I'm very close to finishing this batch. I'm painting right now, so I do apologise if I keep looking down, but said I'd get it done by the end of the week, so I'm sort of every free moment I get putting paint on these things. It's getting pretty close now on this batch. There'll be some more coming, but I'm still enjoying it. I mean, they're very cool models, these new Necrons. So I say new, it's been out over a year, but yeah,
they're good. They are good.
Pretty much like them.
How about you, Trips? Any hobby on the go?
November is my traditional sort my hobby out month, and tidy up the room and sort everything out. But I have been printing tiles. Like, there's a new game that's using them coming out, and today we moved on to clips to connect tiles together. So I think I'm only 14 tiles short of a set now.
Do you know what? You might be done in time as well.
Yeah. I will have them before I have the rule book in hand.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
We can trust Ian to like actually get a project done.
I know.
Putting us to shame, Ian.
Oh, hugely. I printed one tile. Got a couple of bits in chat. Davin Perry says, working on my own corn team, mutation access is a big change. It really is. I think we'll see some. I think we'll see some claw spam. I don't think it's going to be great, but I think we will see it. And Fend on the nobility lineman there from Hendy. Yeah, absolutely. Paul says, after playing them since Blood Bowl 1 came out, it's great to have new Blood Bowl experiences. Yes, it is. It's great to see these teams come out. And, you know, we've been really lucky with the Black Orcs, with nobility, with the change to Underworld and Necro, regardless of whether you like the change to Necro or not. And then this new Khorne team is pretty good, and I expect to see this continue. Although, Ben, it does look like neither of us are going to win our prediction for the year. No Squig team.
I know.
No Slanesh team. I feel like you were closer and just chose the wrong Chaos God.
Because it's Chaos, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it.
We'd have traded all of that in for Khorne and Dungeon Bowl.
Oh, huge. Well, I don't know.
It's not that bad, all things considered.
Oh, but think about it. How great would a Squig team be in a dungeon? Like, be fantastic. Now, don't get me wrong, Khorne are going to do pretty good in the dungeon. And I'll tell you what, guys, shall we move on to the big topic today? Dungeons and decisions. Okay, so the meat of the episode is Dungeons and Decisions. How badly do you need to buy Dungeon Bowl? Not how badly do you want to buy Dungeon Bowl, because if you're someone like me who started out with Dungeon Bowl, the desire to buy this is incredibly and potentially unnecessarily high. Now, we've got Ben and we've got Trips, who I believe might be on slightly different parts of this spectrum. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through basically the 3 key bits about Dungeon Bowl and whether or not you need to buy it, whether or not there's a different way to go that may suit you. So I'm going to open and say that I am hugely in the camp of I cannot wait to buy this because it's awesome, but at the same time, do you need it? Do you really need it? Well, that's kind of what we're going to dig in and have a look at. And to kick things off, there was an article that dropped this week that kind of went into a few bits and bobs. So we're going to have a look at that to start. But we are going to look through the rules, we're going to look through the teams, and we're going to look through the dungeons, and we're going to talk about what you need, whether you need to buy the box game or not. So a couple of updates though, guys. I don't know if you got a chance to see this as the wee went. It says top 5 things, 5 ways Dungeon Bowl totally shakes up the game of Blood Bowl. I mean, streamlined rules, it just says they've updated the rules to 2020, and you know what, compared to standard Blood Bowl, I think that it's fair to say that Dungeon Bowl shakes up how Blood Bowl is played on account of it being played in a dungeon, probably to 1 touchdown, with teleporters, with exploding treasure chests, with walls. I think that definitely shakes it up, and I say that would probably fall into all of the categories, and that's kind of why and where we're going to split this up. So it's big different. This bit, refined dungeon generation, the process of setting up a dungeon arena has been totally reimagined. You now work with your opponent to generate a play area before tossing a coin to determine your respective starting positions. This means you can gamble on a high risk, high reward strategy by weighing the dungeon one way and then hopefully winning the coin toss and getting to choose that side. So when it comes to dungeon generation, doesn't sound like there's going to be preset maps. It sounds like you're going to have to work with your opponent to build it. And you know what? I, for one, I've been in the zone where when I was younger with like the Space Hulk tiles, when I've been designing Dungeons and Dragons like dungeons and things, building dungeons is cool. And definitely gives you that bit of flexibility. It's certainly not competitive, but I think that's probably something we can come to at the end.
It's fun though. And I think it's going to mean that you won't play 2 games the same.
Yeah. And hey, we're huge fans of that here. That's why we love the mixed team stuff, is because you're likely to play games you will never play a game. And you're exactly right, Trips. You sit down and make a dungeon, no 2 games are going to play out the same. So each...
I do wonder if... sorry.
No. Go. I was
going to say, I do wonder, and I mean, the next section kind of comes onto this, but I do wonder if it will support you like expanding it, or like does the dungeon layout always like have to be these tiles, or could you have like unique tiles that you maybe add to it yourself?
Well,
that'll be something I'm
we
interested in.
are definitely going to talk about that, because that's one of the biggest thing
Yeah.
about Dungeon Bowl, and it's one of the biggest things that has no need for the box, and that's kind of this is why Dungeon Bowl is a weird expansion as far as Blood Bowl goes, or at least it should be. Whether this box is going to limit it or not, I don't know, Ben. Each room has unique rules. Blood Bowl is renowned for its wacky and unpredictable nature, yet Dungeon Bowl takes it to a whole new level. Each room tile now comes with its own special rules for your players to interact with the environment. For example, we're making an armor roll in the armory. You'll get +1 modifier to represent your player, clobbering your opponent with one of the weapons lying around, and if you stumble into the Dragon Youngling's lair, you can be knocked down on a 5+, causing a turnover if your player is carrying the ball. It's Bedlam down there, which is very interesting. I do like that the little different dungeon rooms have got stuff there. Like, there's knives and things, which is what you'd see in a dungeon. Because, I mean, the whole point of Dungeon Bowl is that it takes place in a random dungeon, and there are several things that you require in a dungeon. And there's always an armory, and oddly, there's always a shop. I never figured out quite why or what their trade is normally, but if you've ever played an adventure like Choose Your Own Adventure book, there is always a shop. And I'm like, dude, I've worked in shops for 18 years, and this is a terrible location.
Awful footfall.
Awful footfall. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's like an Orcs version of a Greg's just like round the corner. Like just pops into Dungeway and picks
Grogs.
up. Yeah, Grogs. I like that. There we go. I have to get some branding on the go. So, fancy rules, dungeon terrain. It's got the treasure chests and the teleporters, and the teams, which is a huge element that we'll chat about in a bit. 8 different colleges with a mixture of players from different teams. So there was some interesting stuff in there. I don't think there was anything we didn't know except for the distribution of the teams, and it's quite cool that the rooms have special rules. And I guess that takes us to the beginning of this segment, which is looking at the rules. So the box, you've got 2 teams. They are mixed teams. It looks very much like it's going to be 1 sprue of Skaven, 1 sprue of Dark Elves to be the Shadow team, 1 sprue of Ogres, and 1 sprue of Dwarves to be the Fire team. And you get a bunch of tiles and the rulebook. So definitely 3 elements there. The rules, the dungeon, and the teams. So let's start at the rules. I mean, it's been said that this is a £95 rulebook. And I think this is what we've seen in so many of the comments, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, is people were really hoping that they could just buy the rulebook.
I am one of those people. Yeah.
I am also one of those.
Yeah. And this is, if you split this box in 3, you've got, 30 quid for a rulebook, 30 quid for 2 teams, and 30 quid for cardboard, free range organic cardboard, Dutchy original cardboard, and which is basically, again, branding. So the rules wise, I mean, Trips, what are you expecting in that rule book? Because it looks reasonably chunky.
It looks reasonably chunky, so I'm working on the basis that there's probably quite a bit of lore in there about Dungeon Bowl, or it's just the main rule book with a new section that explains the Dungeon Bowl rules.
Now, I like that you've picked out on one of my fears there, which is definitely, it does say that this is a standalone game. So, and this is kind of something that, all right, let's be positive, Ben. Let's reframe this. Awesome if you're just coming into Blood Bowl and you pick up a Dungeon Bowl rule and the game has got the league rules in there. If you already play Blood Bowl, having the league rules is a duplicate and you really don't need it. If it's different than the Blood Bowl league rules, which I am a little bit worried about based on how they did the Sevens rules, I think that would be a negative. How do you guys feel about the league rules being in there?
I think it's a negative if you're an experienced player and you're already in a league and you're doing it. I think that the other thing is this is a new starter box, so there are going to be new people buying this and are not traditional Blood Bowl players. I will likely be buying a box for a newer starter to Blood Bowl of the smaller scale. to get into, because it's a quicker and easier game to get your head round and play. So in that case, having those expanded rules in there is really important to start the slow suck into 30 years of playing Blood Bowl.
I can attest to that. So yeah, you're right. Having that there for people who are just coming in is very good. And having Ben, you bought probably far too many dungeon crawler Kickstarters and probably still waiting for some of them to arrive. But like having a dungeon crawler boxed game is just one of the most alluring things of being a gamer, right? Like
it is, yeah.
And
I love a dungeon crawler.
yeah. Like having a dungeon crawler is great, and being able to key in there. So what Trips is saying about, get the box, and then for someone who's new to Blood Bowl or gaming, or it is just Dungeon Bowl, you've got a box with a ton of replayability, and having those league rules in there is going to be really good to get them into the game. And that is assuming that the league rules are the same as Blood Bowl, which you've got to assume they are. I really hope they don't kind of simplify it down. But Ben, what else are you expecting or would want to see in that book?
I mean, Trips, the lore. That's something I definitely want to see out of it. I'd want to see some kind of it's just some kind of something that adds to replayability, like if it's like a campaign, like different campaigns or something. I don't know if that's part of Dungeon Bowl in the past, but some like settings, that kind of thing. You have like different colleges. Could you have different like settings for the dungeons where it changes up the play? Like I'd want to see something like that, something to make each game even more different rather than just relaying the tiles in a different way.
Yeah, kind of death zone inside the book.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, a dungeon specific death zone, dude. Different dungeons would be wicked in there. Different themes of dungeons would be great in there. For me, the thing that I really want, that really don't need and probably won't be in there, but is such a massive part of dungeons, is wandering monsters. And they had this in 2nd edition. I don't think it was in the core rules. I think it was an expanded article, but you could have like a dragon wandering around in the dungeon, and it had it had claws, unsurprisingly, and there's spiders and stuff, which that's such a massive part of being in a dungeon is running around and coming around a corner and finding a monster there and then being like, nope. So yeah, I'd love to see that, because we love expanded rules, and if they don't have them, we'll make them, and it will take 0 days for us to put something together, because it's just such a cool element to it. So as far as the rules go, cool, they got a league thing, cool that they've got the teams in there. It would be great to see a ton of background and some variation in the actual dungeon bit. So
if we go back to the very first article, it did say there might be a dragon in there.
It did, and I'm very much hoping that is a thing to say. We're going to have wandering monsters. It's Dragon Week on Warhammer Community right now, so I'm hoping that on Friday they'll be like, haha, buy your dragon ready for Dungeon Bowl. Because I will buy a dragon ready for Dungeon Bowl. How the dragons fly around in these small corridors, I don't know, but I don't know. The squares, they're too wide. You could fit a giant in there. You could definitely fit a giant in there. A couple of bits in chat. Do you expect all the players to have the same cost, or will things like passing ability need to be costed less? That's actually quite interesting. So we've seen the team layouts at the moment of how many players you can have of a certain type in a certain college. Okay, we've only seen 2, but still. Maybe we'll see some adjusted costs for throwers, perhaps. So that's a good shout. Jonathan Redmond says, I love the sound of it, but I'll be grabbing it for sure. Just worried the community won't warm to it, want to try it. Now, that is... I think we'll just talk about that right now. We had this chat in the Wobble chat this week, haven't we? And, Trips, where do you think Dungeon Bowl will land in the kind of standard rotation, I guess, is a way of saying it?
Oh, I think it's... we've seen it within the league and the club players we've got. Everybody wants to play it, and it might not be something that everyone wants to play every week, but it feels like your Blood Bowl palate cleanser, particularly if you've been smashed in the league twice by Corn or something like that. A bit of Dungeon Bowl Yeah, and you might be able to get a couple of games in on a club night. So I can see a lot of people picking it up and playing it for a bit of change.
Yeah, I like that. BT, what do you reckon?
I think, yeah, time is very limited. Time for playing games is very limited, and while it might be a palate cleanser, I do feel like people like their league, and if you have to, get people away to play a one-off game, it can be a lot harder. I mean, I've so many games that myself and my friends have got that we just haven't even got around to playing yet. We've had them for like months, sometimes years, just because it's just getting the time to play a game can be really, really challenging sometimes. And that's the trouble with the board game space. You might play it like once or twice, but other than that, it might remain off the shelf. And that's kind of a case where I think maybe it doesn't matter too much about if the league rules and stuff are in there, because maybe you don't have the time to dedicate a whole league to this one-off box game.
And that's very fair. And we kind of bounced around and said it's going to fit kind of where Sevens is. Like every now and again, it's great to have a Dungeon Bolt event. It's great to have a Sevens event, but not standard. However, if the rules fit in the same way that they used to, and I can't see why not, you can fit a Dungeon Bolt game or a couple of Dungeon Bolt games into a standard 11 season. The difficulty with Sevens is your league team was for naught in a Sevens event. Like it just didn't fit right. As much as I tried to make it fit because it's just the best version of Blood Bowl, being able to just be like, cool, I'm going to play my Black Orcs against Ben's Nobility league team, and this week is going to be Dungeon Bowl week, and you can chuck it in there and have something different, have something that everybody kind of has a good laugh at playing, and you can kind of fit it in. So I think that's actually a really good shout from Jonathan, but it is not going to be as popular as standard Blood Bowl. It is a spectacle game, I think. If you're playing at home, if you're playing with your siblings, your parents, your kids, just like absolutely binging Dungeon Bowl games is wicked. Building a massive dungeon and playing it through is just one of the best things you can ever do. Like we did this as kids, we'd build massive dungeons, and it was just like, I would never play it now. It's such a bad idea, but dude, getting like a patio table and your like dining room table and lining them up and making 8 foot of dungeon and then running a team or 4 teams in there, it's a wicked spectacle. Yeah, Ian's on board with this.
Yeah, you say you'd never do it now, but if we said in 3 weeks' time 4 of us are got a table at Entoyment for 4 hours to play a mega Dungeon Bowl game, we'll all be there.
That would be sweet, actually. That would be sweet. But that's it. It's a spectacle game, I think. So I think it's going to fit in as something different, and it's something that we've not had before. And Ben's right. Playing time is very limited, but actually you could probably include this in your league without too much difficulty, and that is really nice. That's a really great question. Davin says, if the rules are radically different to Blood Bowl 2020, then it won't be good. Like if it's Blitz Bowl, I think we're pretty safe with that. Jonathan said, but exploding treasure chest, what's not to like? Liminality says, I've never played, but really interested. Would hate for the majority of the rulebook being a carbon copy of 2020, though. Yeah, that would. Davin says, carbon copy kind of makes sense. Tyler says, happy American Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for having an awesome show. Thank you. Yes, of course. Happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the Thanksgiving sales that's going on at the moment. Davin's Wandering Monsters would be cool. Dungeons and Dragons Bowl. Worth the cost of Patreon just to see Ben not know how to pronounce my name. So just to avoid it. Right. EOIN. That's Ewan, isn't it?
Isn't it Owen?
Oh, it might be Owen.
Ewan? Is it Ewan or is it Owen? Okay, I fucked it. I shouldn't have said anything.
One of the above.
One of the above.
Yeah.
There we go. Mr. Hannon. We'll go with that one. Right, cool. So the book is going to be incredibly important if you want to play Dungeon Bowl. Perhaps, I don't know, it might not be. If you know how the treasure chests work, and you know how the teleporters work, and there are going to be some special rules around throwing balls around corners and stuff, but actually I know a channel that's going to have a decent breakdown video of how those work, because that's what we do here, because that's where we get excited. So actually, do you need the rulebook? You need the rulebook probably about as much as you need Death Zone. All right. If you love Blood Bowl, you love theme, you love Dungeons and Dragons source books, this book with rules and opportunities is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a really great pickup. And I think G-Dubs not bringing the rulebook out together with this is on purpose, because at that point, that whole it's a £95 book for me is accurate. But you know what? This book, if it's good, if it's fun, is like, that's okay. Like, that's okay because it comes with a bunch of stuff as well. So moving on to the bunch of stuff. I don't know. What do we want to do? Do we want to do dungeons or teams next?
Should we do teams first?
It's Owen. You were right, Ben. Sorry, Owen.
Okay. Phew.
So sorry, Trips. Teams.
Teams next, because you got to have a team to play.
All right. Let's do teams. So there was another article. We did a little video on it. They've changed some of the info in the article now, which is quite interesting. They've taken Chaos out of the College of Fire. Originally, in their first article, Chaos was in the College of Fire. Now it's not. So when it comes to teams, this is something that the book will be kind of useful for, but only to the same extent of knowing what goes in it. And again, a decent spreadsheet or something. It's certainly not insurmountable. There are 8 colleges, and each college has a mix of teams, but it is not just a mix of teams. So the College of Fire is our first example here. Dwarves, ogres, and Khorne. It's not going to be the whole dwarf roster, the whole ogre roster, and the whole Khorne roster. And we've got an example of this, because in the same article, actually, there was a kind of the 2 archetypes here of 2 teams. So College of Death and the College of Beasts. And in that, so the College of, let's go with the College of Beasts. I think it does more stuff. Lineman, 0 to 16, Beastman, Runner. So the College of Beasts was listed as having Khorne, Nurgle, Necro, and Lizardman, I think. Chaos as well, or something outrageous. And we're thinking, wow, that team is going to be absolutely crazy. But it's not, because they've taken specific players and brewed up a new roster that is the College of Beasts. So the linemen are Beastmen. The runners are 0 to 2 werewolves. 0 to 4 blitzers that you can choose between Pestigores and Khorngors. 0 to 4 blockers, Chaos Chosen blockers. 0 to 3 big guys, Minotaur, Croxagore, Rat Ogre, and Bloodspawn. So one thing we don't know right now is whether the team's integral limitations will affect it. So big guys 0 to 3. Is it 0 to 3 Minotaurs, or is it 0 to 3 of the following and the Minotaurs 0 to 1, the Croxagores 0 to 1? And that brings up one of the points from chat just now, that actually, are they going to adjust the costs for Dungeon Bowl? Because that's interesting. Now, what do you guys think about the restrictions element? Do you think we'll see additional, or do you think it is just literally 0 to 3 of these dudes in any order?
I think there will be a restriction. I know you're desperate for a 3 Minotaur build, Ben. I think there will be a restriction on the player types within that. I don't think this will be like the list you get and you just like go nuts.
Yeah.
I think the opposite. I think this is Dungeon Bowl has always been a bit mad for team builds, and I feel that fits into the category straight off. I think it would be fabulous GW marketing, because yes, you might want to might want to play a 3 Minotaur build, but that means
why would you not?
Three Minotaurs that you've got to get if you haven't got access to one of the 75 million third-party ones, then they're going to make a fortune.
So, Ben, you are probably right, but there is a little bit of hope that I'm clinging on to. And if you look at the College of Death roster, it says blockers 0 to 4, Flesh Golem. That's it. The Flesh Golem is 0 to 2 in the parent roster, but it's 0 to 4 blockers there. Now, given that the article has already been changed and edited to be corrected for the teams, it doesn't fill me with a lot of hope that that's not just going to be blockers 0 to 2 Flesh Golems. But there is a chance that it is just going to be grouped in that way. And if the teams are laid out like this in the book, you won't need the book, right? Because it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll need the other books, and if you've already got the other books, you're good to go. Like if you've got the rosters and things like that. Whether they're going to have player profiles for every team in the Dungeon Bowl book is going to be interesting, because that does kind of invalidate Spike 13 if the Khorne roster is just straight up in the book. Do you think they're going to have all the player profiles?
I think they will. I think it will be pretty tricky for a boxed game not to have the profiles for the players. And
So
I think it will be quite hard to play your team.
I agree with you. Like, I mean, I love the Spike magazines. They're quite cheap anyway. They're good fun. But if you're just getting into Blood Bowl, being able to pick up the Dungeon Bowl book and having all of the league rules and all of the rosters in there, that's pretty useful from a Games Workshop point of view. It would be hilarious if the standard Blood Bowl rules aren't in there, which I imagine that they're not. So that's also quite funny. But yeah. So the way the teams are structured, it creates brand new teams, and I, for one, am incredibly excited to take these to the 11s pitch, because it happens in the fluff all the time that Dungeon Bowl teams go and play 11s and the 11s teams go and play Dungeon Bowl, and I cannot wait to run my triple Bloodspawn roster with a couple of werewolves and just enjoy it, because the Bloodspawn is going to perform, I think, pretty darn well in tunnels. Because Frenzy Strength 5 and no armor saves you against the Bloodspawn, I think is going to be worth the extra 10k versus Minotaur, and I love Minotaurs. Davin says a write-up for each college would be very good too. I'm sure we'll have a bit of background for each of the colleges.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I'm really intrigued by the whole like college system. It's like the different names, like why they're called that, where they've come from. Like, I'm really blind. I'm going into Dungeon Bowl completely blind.
That's so
They used to have
exciting.
they
Yeah, it
had
is
a
very
draft system and all sorts in old versions of it. So there's like
Really,
so many bits and pieces of rules that could be added in there.
And that's
cool.
so exciting. Like, that element is so good. So teams wise, we've got 8 teams and each of them are custom rosters. I mean, Ben, what do you think about having this bespoke roster system like this?
what, like having this?
Yeah, this
Like what they
weird
provided?
Chinese menu style builder Blood Bowl team.
I think it's pretty interesting. I
Genuinely want Chinese now.
like. I think it's cool, and I wonder like how they've come up with it. Is it purely thematic, or like is there like any sort of form of balance in there? I know Blood Bowl's a bit weird for balance, but have they decided this team could use this kind of player, so this is why we've chosen that kind of player? Or is it just because, College of Beasts, let's get the beastie looking guys? But then they've got like Chaos Chosen blockers, which I think is strange for like College of Beasts. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
the trend of logic it doesn't exist, I think, here.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't massively before. I like that they've kind of gone a themey route, but you're exactly right, Ben. There's some questionable stuff in there, and the College of Death not having werewolves, that's a bit sad. Well, I brought this up in chat. Rich Saxby was like, "Yeah, but werewolves aren't dead, are they?" I'm like, "Well, neither are ghouls. Like,
Very
neither
true.
are the ghouls. Like, the logic, there is no logic
Flesh
train.
golems, technically, I don't know. But,
Who
they are
knows?
kind of dead.
Like, yeah, death is
Yeah.
subjective. if the golem, identifies as being alive, then actually, go nuts.
Yeah.
And then you've got the beasts, and I do love the idea of having all the bestial kind of guys. But you're right, Ben. Like, there's beastmen, there's weremen, there's minotaurs, there's croxagors, there's Arnold, and it's a bit.
Yeah, so they've gone for Croxagore, but not Lizardmen for the blockers. I just thought that would have been a better fit. Lizardmen are basically just good guy beastmen, right? So
Yeah, I mean, was it Sam Frenzy Garner who immediately was like, "Dude, there's a Beastman team right there. You just get Pestigores and use them as Chaos blockers." And I was thinking, actually, what? The Pestigores from the Nurgle team would print up on a larger scale. And there's loads of cool Beastman models out there. You print them up to be Strength 4. That's pretty cool. They don't have horns, though. It's weird. Like, I don't think there is a chain of logic when it comes to this. And
something that is cool about them though is I think it's the first time we've seen properly defined categories, right? So having like linemen, runners, blitzers, blockers. I remember we've discussed in the past, definitely on a previous episode.
yeah,
But like, what are like a favorite runners or the favorite blockers? We've kind of like, have we kind of come up with that kind of definition? Like catchers, throwers, are they a thing, or are they just fall under the runner category? I think it's really cool to see these like defined categories, and that's very interesting from a team design standpoint, especially when it comes to like custom and mixed teams.
and that's
And easier for new starters as well. because it gives you an idea of what that player is meant to do.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about calling a werewolf a runner before. I think I put him in the top 5 runners, and people were like, whoa, he's a blitzer. Ironically, though, the Corngors and Pestigors aren't blitzers. They're runners. Definitely runners. And it's like, what's the thrower going to be? Is a catcher going to be its own category? I mean, the gutter runner is a catcher, but it's a runner. That's fair. But a human catcher runner? Like, where's it going to be? Where's the thrower going to be? Someone was like, is there going to be a thrower category? I don't know. And it's quite cool. And I know that it makes no odds at all, does it? Like, it's not a problem. It's just, you're right, Ben. It is interesting. But that's the good thing about Blood Bowl. Like, the way that everything's a scale. Everything's a runner if it's got the ball. And like Trips was saying, Black Orc runners. That's where that team goes.
Yeah.
And
are we going to see them? Sorry, are we going to see throwers? Because isn't Dungeon Bowl like a bit weird for throwing?
To be honest with you, in Blood Bowl, when are you throwing over 6 squares anyway? And
I haven't seen me playing ability.
Running pass.
Yes.
I have seen you play nobility, and I have seen you use running pass, and the patrons are going to see that Saturday too. As far as it used to be, you could only throw quick and short passes, and you can bounce off walls as well, which is quite showy. I don't know whether it's going to be a huge element of the game or not. So with the teams, I guess it's best now to talk about positionals. So we've seen at least one team where they're in multiple teams. So the Necro team is in the College of Beasts and the College of Death, and there are no duplicate positionals. So the werewolf is in one of those rosters. The rest of the positionals are in t'other. And I wonder if we're going to see 2 things. The positionals spread out, or if just some positionals won't exist in the game. Will there be some positionals they can't shoehorn in? And Chaos Khorne is probably a really good one, right? So if we look at the College of Yonder Fire, let's go here. So Dwarves, Ogres and Khorne, we know from the box that you can have dwarf players, all of them, and we know that you can have at least Ogres and Noblars. It may be that there is no punter allowed, but Khorne is also in that roster. So judging by the other ones, right, it might just be that, I don't know, what are we going to see? Are we going to see a choice of 2 linemen here, like dwarf lineman, Noblar lineman? Are we going to see some players missing because they're shoehorning 20 teams into 8 and getting all those positionals in all those teams? I mean, I think
it's challenging.
Even we'd struggle with that. And no, I'm joking, we wouldn't. But it wouldn't be good.
Yeah, Snotling have a lot that would be struggle to fit in multiple teams.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Snotlings and Goblins both fall in the College of Life. So there's 19 different teams wedged into 8. So it's not too bad, actually. It's just a 2 and a bit teams. 2 and a bit teams per team. And of those teams, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are duplicated. And 2 of them are duplicated in multiple teams. So Human and Khorne are in 3 teams. Lizard, Skaven, Necro, Nobility and Nurgle are in 2 teams. Chaos Dwarf, Dark Elves, Orcs, Wood Elves, Undead, Elves, Black Orcs, Ogres, Halflings, Goblins, Snotlings are all in 1 as well. And Goblins and Snotlings are in the same thing. No, Snotlings and Halflings are in Life and Goblins are in Shadow. Are we going to see a chainsaw?
I'd hope so. That seems fitting. I mean, weapons galore seems kind of the Dungeon Bowl theme, right?
I hope so, but like that roster is going to be brutal because it's going to be like 17 different positionals, and our league spreadsheet's only built to take up to 12, I think, because OWA landed, and I was like, all right, let's just add a couple to be on the safe side. And I think we're going to see some of these rosters just nuke our spreadsheet, which means I'll have to build a new, better one, which is okay. I can probably do that. But yeah, do you think we're going to see some positionals missing from the final show?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
seem inevitable. Yeah.
But I'm hoping they're missing because there's going to be future colleges down the line.
Yes, Good shout, Ian.
Oh, what was that? Sorry.
I hope there's going to be future colleges to expand the Dungeon Bowl.
Oh,
Dungeon Bowl Death Zone or something next
Expansion
year.
potential. That's what we want to see.
there was at least Rainbow and Dark College, I think. In the original, I don't know whether it was the original, like the 3rd edition version, but there was definitely a Rainbow College, and of course there was a Dungeon Bowl video game that had some extra
Was there?
colleges. Yeah, it was very bad. It got pulled.
Get out of town.
Yeah, by Cyanide
Yeah,
using the Blood Bowl 1 engine.
Cyanide as well.
Yeah,
Gotta
yeah,
see this.
it didn't do great, which is such a shame because I completely missed it, and I was like, oh, cool. This was back, I think, when I was farming Blood Bowl 1 games to play with the old Corn roster, and I was like, dude, there's Dungeon Bowl, and couldn't get hold of it. I even tried to download it.
Dungeon Bowl Knockout Edition.
I even tried to
Last
buy
updated
it legally,
2012.
Ben. I was like, I'll just buy this. This is fine, and I couldn't.
Wow.
Couldn't even buy it.
Does look quite naff.
Yeah, and yeah, and not the kind of naff that tracks your stats.
Yeah.
So we've seen Shadow, we've seen Fire, College of Metal, Orcs, Black Orcs, Khorne, and Humans. And at first I was like super excited. Now we just don't know what's going to be in there, do we? Are we going to see Black Orcs? Is this going to be the blockers? You can choose between Black Orcs and Big Uns. Like that's quite cool. That gives you a bit of flexibility. Honestly, guys, I just want to know which roster the Seekers are going to be in, because that is going to be my team. Because Strength 4 Frenzy in a tunnel is gonna be great. Like,
Yeah.
going to be great. No nega traits, 2 dice all day long, basically against everybody. 4 die blocks. Yeah, Seekers is where it's at. And I'm very, very, very much excited about that. I mean, is there any of these colleges immediately splash out and excite you guys?
I think I want to try them all. To be fair, this Beast one actually looks pretty fun. Like, it looks really quick and wrong on the blitz and stuff like that. Like, having werewolves with strength 4 blockers, it sounds just like, well, like I say that you got like other teams exist, but like
the golems don't count.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but with like Chaos Chosen and then Beastmen to back it up, and the big guys, it's just, I mean, I'm loving this.
Yeah,
the College of Life team you mentioned sounds really fun as well. Nurgle and Wood Elf seems like quite a beastly combo.
and Snotlings, and with a little bit of Halflings in there as well. So you
Yeah,
could roll
that's
2
true.
Trolls and 3 Treemen from that roster. I mean, I'm
Man,
sure it's going to be
yeah.
0 to 3 big guys, but it does mean that you can throw Snotlings with trees, which
Yeah.
I think, if we're honest,
That's
is
pretty
something we've all wanted to do. How about you, Trips?
I quite like the College of, I think it's the College of Light, the one with nobility in, because I think nobility in a dungeon are going to be very annoying,
I'm going to
because you
take
can
Seekers,
just fill a corridor.
Ben's going to take those blooming Fen stand firm, horrible blue mage.
No fun allowed in this dungeon.
Yeah. Tap, no. Is how that's going to play out. Elven Union with a bit of human and a bit of nobility in there. Honestly, any elves to add to human thrower, awesome. I mean, and those cheap linemen with Fend, you're right, Trips. It's good. It's a really good counter to the idiots like me who are like, haha, strength and frenzy. That's fine. Here's a peasant. Like, you don't get to do your thing. That sounds great. Cheers, Ben.
It's going to force you to use the teleporters, and that's always fun when that goes wrong.
Yeah, true. You're just making the game more fun for everyone.
Jonathan's pointed out something. Drive a pump wagon through the dungeon. Will we see pump wagons? Will we see death rollers? I mean, quite frankly, I don't care about the death roller. Like, if I'm really hoping that the College of Fire roster has a Minotaur or something, like has a Bloodspawn, and you can just but then you can use the death roller model and actually use it in Blood Bowl, as opposed to just having 6 different death rollers that you use as turn markers.
Oh, that does take me on to a different question.
Oh, okay.
If I may.
Go.
Do you guys think that, I mean, this will be difficult to make from like a consumer standpoint? You're like, right, I want my College of Life team now. I need to buy 4 boxes. Do you think this could be a really big boost to the 3D print market?
Hugely so. Third party, 3P and 3D are the best place to be if you're a Dungeoneer. Okay, third party and 3D printing. Someone said it in one of our videos, actually. They flagged up and said, man, back in the old days where you could pick up a blister of like 2 or 3 dudes, this would have been wicked. Like, pick up a pack of human blitzers, pick up a couple of golems, like, I'm brewing up my team. Now it's a case of, you know, it's not expensive to have every team, but it is expensive to have a little bit extra of any one team. I think so. You're right, BT. Like, I want to add werewolves to my chaos team and run a beast faction. Am I going to buy a box of werewolves? Actually, yes. But you know, if you want to add stuff from different rosters, then yeah. I'm like, the College of Life is a cracking example. I'll buy a box of wood elves and then Ponga Patreon. I can print off my pestigores. You know, I can, but whatever comes out of there. I've got some snotlings, got some halflings. You know, from Ponga, and you can print it out. But yeah, third party, I can see Grebo going and having a great time with this and being like, hey, here's the College of Life bundle, here's the Beasts bundle with the different elements. But I think the cost is quite, it's actually third party or just buying an extra team for 2 positionals. Cost wise, it is not far off. And that's the sad thing.
I reckon in January there'll be a lot of clubs having lots of discussions going, who's got spare ones of this and of that, and I'll trade you 2 of those for 1 of those, and I need that.
Blood Bowl.
Trading Pokemon cards back in the day in the school playground. That was good times.
And you know what? I am very surprised with these rosters. They haven't just gone 1 sprue of each and then sold a College of Life thing with an Elf Union, a human, and a nobility roster. Sprue. I'm really surprised they haven't gone that way. And when the box landed, that's what I assumed it was going to be.
I mean, they do for Blitzbolt, right? They're like single sprue.
Yeah.
You reckon they'll get repackaged into some Dungeon Bowl and shipped around the world?
I don't think so, because it's like £25 for 2 sprues or 15 for 1. Like, no one would do it. You just go and buy 2 and go halves with a friend. But from a Games Workshop design point of view, this is completely out there, and I think Ben, you bang on the money there. This is, as an expansion, this is a very difficult one to support from a consumer point of view. Like, this is way more sandbox than anything they've done in a really long time. Because this does not encourage you to go and buy a bunch of boxes of Blood Bowl teams. It really doesn't, and
gotta say, I quite like it. I've sort of wanted this sandboxness from Games Workshop for quite some time now, so it's actually really refreshing to see them go back to this kind of thing. Like, this used to be really common in all their games. Like, when I got into 40k, even in 7th edition, not that long ago, 7 years ago, but got into that was so sandbox. Like, it'll be like, oh, I'm making my squad of orc boys, so I can take all of this, but the box doesn't come with that. Oh yeah, because you can make it if that's what you want. You want to stick your paintball on a bike.
Do you know
we don't sell that?
Do you know what these colleges are? They're not teams. They're war bands.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Yeah. This is more like building a Warcry warband than it is a Blood Bowl team, and that's really exciting. Difficult to get new players into, but what an aspirational element here. So the College of Beasts, 0 to 4 of Pestigores, Corngors, so that's 8 different players, and up to 12 big guys to have the full. Like, you cannot have everything you need for one college. Well, you can, and we probably do, but not painted anyway. Let's go with that. But yeah, it's
unless
really...
you've got a load of Warcry miniatures, because they might come in very handy to fill the roster out.
Hugely so.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ben, I think 3D printing and third party, absolutely not essential, but there's going to be a class system when it comes to playing Dungeon Bowl. I think there's going to be entry level, and then there's going to be, I've got models from 6 different teams because I printed them, because I bought every single team and painted every team up with the same scheme. But I want to paint a specific Elf Union, Human and Nobility team with the blue and white scheme. I want a college team, like the Beast roster. Like, we're going to be filming some games on YouTube hopefully next week. I really want a red team for the Fire Guys, and I really want a black and purple team for the Skaven and Dark Elves. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? Like, do I just buy extra boxes of stuff? And there's going to be a lot of people that can do that. And you know what? That's fine. Like, if you need 2 werewolves, just get a necro team. Like, it's £24. Get it from Entoyment. Otherwise, you'll spend £16 buying STLs and resin and or ordering them from like Grebo, and for £8 more you get an entire team. Like, there's going to be angles like that which are great. You've got a chaos team, buy a couple of werewolves, chuck it in, your team's ready to go. There's going to be some other teams that I think are way more chaotic and to build and maximize, but I love it because we get to brew up some serious rosters. And to your point later, Ian, these combinations, they can definitely add some colleges. How they explain them away, I don't know. But you know what? They can definitely do it. We can definitely do it. There will be loads of players that definitely do it.
I'm less worried about them. How the how doesn't really matter. The bits and pieces of all the rosters, and it means they can keep building in new teams, and then they can retrofit them into Dungeon Bowl, and we'll just be like ridiculously happy for 2 years.
Oh, new team. How does it fit into Dungeon Bowl? Better get it for, Cornlands. Oh, I can take them in this Dungeon Bowl team. I'll pick up a box of corn to add to my College of Life team. It's a very cool. It's another way to play. I love it. So the team element is pretty awesome. Are there any downsides to it, do you guys reckon?
I mean,
I think the downside is that you can't buy a box of a team.
Yeah, that is a very big downside. Is that this is packed level, isn't it? Chaos packed level difficulty.
Yeah. Also, potential downside is where Ian was saying future expansions could be cool, but then is there enough to expand into that? Like, all of the teams have their home. Like, do we have to then wait for 3 new teams to drop and they'll just get crammed into one Dungeon Bowl college? Is that going to be the case? Or like, is there much future for development within this, or does it even need it? It might not even need it.
So that does lead on to one of my bullet points, which is the teams of legend. Because you're hugely right, Ben. When Norse lands, where do they go? How do they fit into Dungeon Bowl? Do we have to wait for Norse and High Elves and Amazons to land, and then they get put in a new guy college of the new dudes, and they get Khorne as well because Khorne's cool. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. And the way they've built the custom rosters, like at the beginning, it was like when we saw the box set, like 1 sprue of this team, 1 sprue of this team, that's your college. We kind of thought, all right, sweet, you know what? They can just mix up and say, here's a sprue of this team, sprue of this team. And actually, from a consumer point of view, that works great. Like, who needs a sprue of ogres? I need a sprue of ogres. Sweet, let's split the box. But as they add teams of legend, it's going to be a case of how are they going to fit them in? I don't know. And they might not. And that's probably okay. But we want them added, and that's okay too. So I don't know what they're going to do. And as the teams of legend land, it's going to be very interesting to see how this works. A couple of great things in chat. Paul was pointed out a really, really big problem with the teams. How many more miniatures cases am I going to need now? Yeah, very fair. Balance problems, says Davin. We'll talk about balance. We'll talk about balance now, actually. Do we expect any college specific magic or other types of ability from Owen? And I really hope so. Like, I really hope that we see some special abilities from these teams. But 2 more points to go on to before we move on to the last and the most fun segment, probably. Kind of depends. Oh, I just realised something about Dungeon Bowl. I'll bring that round to the end. Teams of Legend, balance. Let's talk balance. Do these teams look particularly balanced?
They
I think Blood Bowl's balanced.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd say it doesn't matter. I mean, fortunately, this is a game which balance isn't really an issue.
I agree.
Snotlings are currently leading our league.
Yeah.
There is no balance.
Yeah, I think balance issues are going to be interesting. This is, I think, why I kind of sort of said this might be a class system when it comes to Dungeon Bowl and Dungeon Bowl events is there will be optimal builds, and there will definitely be suboptimal builds, I think, and we see it in Core Blood Bowl a little bit, but 2 boxes will fix anything. In this one, it's going to be a case of 6 boxes to go with the optimal build, but that's just part of it, and that's okay. And the good thing about Dungeon Bowl is that those situations are going to be it's so crunchy, fast, and chaotic that it doesn't matter. Like in Blood Bowl, you can have set formation, Ben's deployed in a chevron. Okay, I know that I'm going to deploy heavy right wing and just mark his left side, smash the right side, and cage in the back in my pocket. Like, here's my set piece. When you do that, by the way, they will roll blitz. It will happen.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's going to happen. Set up heavy this side, blitz, I lose the ball. But in Dungeon Bowl, you're playing in a different dungeon, which is what Trip said. Different dungeon almost every time. You know, you've got some nonsense with the chests having balls, and it's so different that I think there are some elements where balance and cost are going to come in. And I think it's probably okay. I think it might even alleviate some stuff. There are going to be some times where your gutter runner just flies in, gets the ball, and just takes a couple of risky dodges and wins the game on turn 3. But actually, there are going to be a lot of other times where your linemen just outperform everybody else because they're tough enough to take a punch and pick up the ball with edge 3+ afterwards. And I think it kind of puts it in a box where it evens out a little bit. Jonathan, thank you very much. Cheers.
That's Blood Bowl, right?
That is Blood Bowl, and Dungeon Bowl is just Blood Bowl 2. I don't know, it's just a choose your own adventure version of Blood Bowl, and I couldn't think of anything better. So the other thing to mention is star players. The great thing about Death Zone is I do not expect star players to rock up very often, if at all, if they're legal ever. And
I hope not. I really genuinely hope not. These colleges are kind of like build your own star players anyway. You've got so much to choose from.
Yeah. No one needs Hackflint.
Stars would make it a bit boring.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a single mention of a keyword yet, and no keywords mean no star players.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
So what I would love to see instead of this is some kind of dungeon monsters and dungeon assists and dungeon stuff that you can buy for your college that's college specific. You know, like the College of Light, You may actually be able to teleport one of your players using the college spell. Like, so having a college wizard of something, you know, the College of Beasts for 1 turn gives one of your guys double strength and frenzy. Like, I'm going to go to beast mode with this guy.
Yeah.
Like, that would be sweet and would replace the star player element. Okay, guys, can I say that we'll take a very quick break and then go into the last bit, which is about the dungeons themselves?
Yeah.
All right,
Sure.
So we'll be right back. Guys in chat, stick around. I've just had 3 cups of tea and need to go and get rid of them. And we're back, and I have reloaded my tea, so the bathroom countdown begins. Okay, so we're going to talk about the third element of Dungeon Bowl and the third element of the Dungeon Bowl box, which is very much the dungeon part of Dungeon Bowl. So, dungeons. This box comes with a bunch of card dungeons. I'm hoping they're going to be double-sided. We don't know if there are or not. I imagine that they're not going to be, but part of me is like, come on, let's make them double-sided. It was double-sided in the game that shall not be named, so there's every potential that it could be done here. Like, that's Cursed City, if anyone remembers that game. That we all got very excited about, and then it just died horrifically.
Never existed.
Anyway, so Dungeon Bowl element here. The rules are out that there's going to be rooms with special rules, and that you're going to work with your opponent to build a dungeon and then roll off to pick a starting point. So there's that, which is really cool. There is a huge expandability element when it comes to Dungeon Bowl, and one of the things that's made it so popular for so long is that people just love making dungeons. And Trips has gone to town, started printing some stuff off. I've got some printed off as well. I've got one of his and one of resin, which probably won't do any more of because that's a bad idea. But this is the cool bit. So phase 1 of Dungeon Bowl, it comes with a bunch of rooms in the box. So I think one of you guys, or maybe it was Chat, said about this earlier. Are we going to be limited to building a dungeon with the stuff that's in the box in the rulebook? And what do you guys think about that?
I don't think so. I think the rules are going to imply that as long as you agree on the layout you agree on the layout.
Yeah, I think Games Workshop being Games Workshop that we all know and love, in the book it will say lay it out using your tiles that you have bought because you are a good person, you have bought the game. But I'm totally with Ian. If both players say, nah, let's just have one corridor that's 2 squares wide, I think, why not? You know?
I actually think we'll see in this rulebook them recommend maybe not just using the tiles in the box. Maybe they'll recommend using 2 boxes. Like, I can definitely see that. But I guess one of the things that was flagged up in some of our earlier videos, some of the comments, was sort of saying that, you know, what would the world be like? How would global events be adjusted if they said you could only play Dungeon Bowl using 1 boxed set's worth of dungeon tiles, and that's how they keep it tight, and that's how they monitor the game length? Because I mean, I did say earlier that we built like an 8-foot dungeon, and that was not a quick game. But having a dungeon made up of just the tiles in the box would keep it smaller. And you know, somebody in our chat tonight did say that it looks like a small dungeon with the tiles. And it's not a massive dungeon. The thing is with Dungeon Bowl, you don't want it to be a massive dungeon, because historically it's play until someone scores with the 1 ball, and that can be 4 turns and it can be 40 turns. And that's why I like the tribal Wizard Cup rules instead, where there's 3 balls and all play until, you know, there's a time limit, so you play 16 turns in a dungeon, and the final score is the final score. Much better from a competitive play. So anybody who's running a Dungeon Ball event, I do recommend considering those rules, because it would suck if you're like 25 minutes in and you're done with your game, but the round is 2.25 hours. Not even Richard Saxby can finish an 11's game in that amount of time. Maybe an hour 5, right? Maybe an hour 5, but there's a difference between 2 hours of downtime and 1 hour, and then, you know. But anyway, so getting the stuff in the box is wicked. Ian Triplo, do you need this box to be able to have a dungeon?
No.
And why is
I think it's I think this is spreading into the space of sort of terrain building, hobby making, 3D printing joy. I mean, it is not that hard to figure out how to make dungeon tiles. And if you want to search for it in the YouTube search bar, that will keep you busy for several hours. And there are so many different ways of doing it. I mean, there's the resin printed way, which might be the support from hell way to do it, or there's
the plastic printer.
Plastic printer way, and those are free tiles that you can get off Thingiverse.
Which is amazing.
You can do it on paper, or Ben, you've got all excited about a proper build your own Dungeon Bowl, haven't you?
Yeah, it's just you can do like foam tiles with foam. And that's like Ian said, like the YouTube space is full of that. Like channels like Black Magic Craft or RP Archive. It's like there's some really good channels about making stuff with foam. So you don't even really need a printer for it. Pretty inexpensive from what I've seen. I haven't done it myself, but really do want to.
Talking of printers, you can bust out the old Epson that you've got in the cupboard. You can track down the USB-C cable that you have, and you can just print out dungeon tiles. Like if you've got a lot of ink, you can print out color ones and stick them on card. You know, old school. But if you want to play a game of Dungeon Bowl, you could just literally print out black and white squares. Just the squares. So you can go back to serious basics. You can get a ruler and a box of Cocoa Pops, and you can just make your own. You can go the foam core route, which is like the foundational element of building your own dungeon, isn't it? There's so many different ways. You can do it with wood. You can just use sand and mark out the squares. This is the most incredible thing about Dungeon Bowl. And you can do a thing that I don't think we'll see, but you can build preset dungeons if you want to go seriously hard. You can get a 3x3 from B&Q and just build one dungeon or a series of rooms that you can then use. You don't have to mark it out for Blood Bowl. You can then use that for Warcry, for Kill Team, for Space Hulk, for D&D. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can do so much with it. And that's the one great thing about Dungeon Bowl, beyond all else, is that in Blood Bowl, you've got a pitch. Now, we've played with some rules about adding some stuff to the pitch, like in the way of pillars and holes in the ground and stuff to channel the action. When it comes to Dungeon Bowl, this is like the ultimate sandbox element to it. You build a dungeon between you, and you can just go building bigger rooms, and you can have pillars, and you can have exciting things, and you can see what it'd be like to play a game in the Mines of Moria. You can go to the Underdeep. You can just do so much. You can play in sewers, which I love. We had Sewer Bowl 7s, and I think because of the classic Gotrek and Felix books, like I've got a thing about running around in sewers, because of there was one great story. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But yeah, sewers, like there's just so much you can do, and that's just the square footage of the game. Then you've got special rules. Then you've got wandering monsters. In the very box set, there is a lava bridge. There's rules for treasuries, and this is where, like Trip said, this is where there's something that Blood Bowl misses, which is building terrain. This is where it goes full miniatures game, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts of Dungeon Bowl, but it is also one of the biggest inhibiting factors of Dungeon Bowl. So on the one side, being allowed to make your own gear is wicked. Doing it is great fun. The other hand, setting up a game of Dungeon Bowl is not easy. So Ben, you were at club last night, you rolled out your mat, and the table was the wrong size, so you rolled it back up and used a cardboard one. It took maybe 2 minutes. Setting up a Dungeon Bowl pitch is going to take time. Now, it is part of the game, right? And that's okay, but we've all played full-on war games here. Like, oh man, setting up a 40k game, you got to get the 6x4 out of the cupboard, you got to set up the realm of battle or get the mat out, and you got to get the terrain out, and there is a huge element to it. And one of the great things about Blood Bowl is you just pop the pitch out, you go. When it comes to Dungeon Bowl, you can build so much, and that is one of the greatest elements of any game, is the game outside the game, is the hobby outside the game. You can spend a lifetime making sweet dungeons, but that setup time is going to be larger. That travel time, that extra bit is going to be larger. So the box set, having those cardboard tiles, having a limited supply of cardboard tiles in there, is awesome. I think that's going to be really useful. You sit down, you set up those cardboard tiles. But the fact that you can build sweet random tiles to add to it, with levels, with lava, with cool 3D printed stuff, it just really takes it to another level, and it's just so sweet. But it is also quite risky.
Yeah, it's something that all dungeon crawlers really struggle with. The old table space. The old, digging around for the right tile. Game says you need tiles 6B, and you're like, okay, 6B. My pile of cardboard. Yeah, it's something that they all struggle.
So I'd like to move this conversation, and I'd like to get your points on it. Competitive Dungeon Bowl events, tournaments, table space. What do you guys think is a use? Like, what do you think is an appropriate outcome to that? What do you think is a good answer to that?
Looking at these, I think a 3x3 would be totally fine, and it's a really good size to play games on.
All right.
I think 3x3 is probably the right size. I think 4x4's gonna potentially, you're gonna get into the weird and wacky layouts, which could really stretch a game out. I think you want a game of Dungeon Bowl to have routes, options. You want to use the teleporters, but you don't want to have the whole, there's one corridor we've all got to go through, and someone put the flipping ability lineman in that corridor.
Ben. So this pitch that they've got here, the layout they've got here, is 22 squares wide by 20 squares deep, and a standard Blood Bowl pitch is 15 squares wide and 26 deep. So you are looking, exactly right, at about a 3x3 table space, which is perfectly acceptable. Like, that's fine.
I mean, that's what most D&D dungeons end up being around, 3x3.
There's
And like D&D battle maps and stuff.
one thing about the D&D battle maps and stuff like that is the square size. So where Games Workshop have upped their square size to 32 mil, well, actually the squares are 34 mil. Battle maps, like all the old dungeon tiles you can go out and buy now, they're going to be 25 mil, which is going to be too small to play Blood Bowl on. In the new edition, I know this because we transitioned and someone had an old 3rd edition pitch, which is the 25 mil squares. It got tough, man. And when you're playing in a dungeon, it's going to be really tough. I mean, you've got the overhang, so it probably will be all right. But if you're playing on a battle map where it's all preset, you're 33% too big for the squares. You can put a big guy on a 40 on a 34 mil square because he's only going over by a couple of millimeters around the edge, and that's only just at the apex of each dome. But when you've got a big chunky boy, it's going to be difficult. So, but battle maps and things like that are in the old scale, definitely a bit of a watch out on that one.
And you make a point as well. Like if you have existing D&D dungeon terrain, like if you're one of these like really crafty people and you've made your own stuff, that will kind of suck. You're hoping to reuse that.
Yeah, Games Workshopped all over it with scale creep. I mean, there's that element. Sorry, Trips.
Well, I was going to say that the nice thing about dungeons is you only need one person with a set of dungeons, and multiple people can play. So you don't need 10 people at a club night to have built their own dungeon. You need one person who's got the cardboard, or one person who's built their own tiles, and all of a sudden, you're in.
No, that is definitely right. Now, for a competitive event, I think there's a couple of different ways I think of doing it. One is just have a 3x3 space, and you got to make the dungeon fit in there as part of your round. That seems risky, fun, but risky. Having preset map layouts, so rounds 1 and 2 will be played in this dungeon, round 3 and 4 will be played in this dungeon map. That probably is going to be more fair and consistent. And the other way is printed. So basically a double-side printed dungeon map at 34 mil scale. Like the image from the website, like this one here, just getting it printed on a big bit of poster card and then cut, slapped on the thing, flip it over for round 2. Like that is potentially a way of doing it. And there is a Dungeon Bowl tournament that was brewing up in London that was doing that very thing before the apocalypse, before everything closed down. So that's quite cool. And it was very much like the Kill Team maps. So it was like a rectangle but with walls in the way, so that it created a lot of avenues of travel in a small space. And I think that's definitely something that we could see as well. Not just individual tiles, but preset layouts for competitive events, which is, I think, how old Dungeon Bowl tournaments used to do it as well. And it would be like, use map 3B for this round. And it worked okay, I think. I personally love the idea of, Ben, we've talked about this hundreds of times, League source books.
Yes.
Okay,
God, yeah.
This is the Eastern Wizard College League, and there are 6 dungeons, and you play through all 6. Which dungeon have we got to do now? Okay, it's the Fire Mage's dungeon. It looks like this, and there are special rules that these are on fire. And there's cool stuff you can do with preset layouts. I like the idea of preset layouts, and I mean that's something I think would be really cool to see the community do. Like, here's the Waterdeep dungeons, and the first one's actually taken place.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, right. Taken place in
speaking my language, but
in the docks, and this is the dungeon layout for the docks. And which pitch are we going to play? Which dungeon are we going to play on? We're going to play on the Beholder dungeon now. What's Xanathrax? Xanathar. Close. All right. Xanathrax TM. So there's preset dungeon layouts. So, guys, do you need to buy Dungeon Bowl for the tiles?
No, you don't need to.
I agree. You don't need to. So when we're looking at do you need to buy Dungeon Bowl, if you want to build a dungeon, you just go build a dungeon. Like, you build it however you want. Like, it doesn't matter. I recommend using like the same layout as these tiles, just because actually it ties in nicely.
To start with.
Yeah, and then you go crazy. So you don't need to, but having, dungeon tiles, if we say that it costs a third of this box, so £30 for these dungeon tiles, it does seem a little steep to buy for cardboard, but actually if you look at the price of cardboard, it's probably not that far off. And actually, compared to the hours and hours and hours of building dungeon tiles and printing dungeon tiles, spending 30 quid to pick up this amount of tiles to play a quick game of Dungeon Bowl, I think is a really good cost factor.
Yeah, we even said at the start though, time's limited, didn't we? So
time is limited, exactly.
If you have the time, it's
I
great.
don't know. I think solo time is much easier to come by than game time.
Very much so, yeah.
Like we've got a total of 5 hours of match time a week, but I've already got 20 hours of hobby time. I just spend it helping Tiff build things on Animal Crossing. She's making a very sweet castle right now. It's very cool.
Looking dope.
She's just doing some great stuff. She's having a great time. Okay, so we talked through the teams, we talked through the dungeons, we talked about the rulebooks. I'd like to surmise in that one thing we've known about Blood Bowl and we've enjoyed about Blood Bowl as a hobby is that there's 3 angles of why Blood Bowl is so good. The game, the hobby, and the story element to it. The gameplay, the puzzle solving, the situation, what you've got in your team, what players, what pieces. Huge element in Dungeon Bowl. I mean, I think that's one of its biggest strengths. The play area, the pitch is different. The teams are different. The actual gameplay, like Tripp said right at the beginning, is different every single time. Then you've got the hobby element, which is painting your new team, right? Finding players to go with it, finding werewolf proxies, finding bestigors to use your Chaos Warriors and your Beast thing. We love that part. We're all avid 3D printer nut people here, but if we weren't, we did the same with third party stuff like Kitbash. Grab cool monsters and use them as this. Ben, before 3D printing, did that sweet Ware team using D&D models and stuff. Scrounging pieces to build a team is a great part of the hobby too, and Dungeon Bowl knocks it out the park with that element. And you can build dungeons, which is just something we've all been waiting for an excuse to do. Let's be honest. I think it's just been brewing up. And the last piece is the story. So this is a huge part of League. You get that RP element, that roleplay element of developing your team, brewing your team up. Dungeon Bowl has it with the theme, and you've got the League element, I think, but the theme and the setting massively sets it up from a story point of view, and it's tied in with your team and what it's doing and building your team story. I think the more unique the team, the more background you brew up and the more it becomes your own franchise. We saw this with Bonehead Bowl with the mixed teams. Well, now it's even more imbued because there's more teams in them teams. So Dungeon Bowl massively keys in to the 3 elements that we've always loved about Blood Bowl: the story, the gameplay, and the hobby aspect. And I think that's why it's so absolutely beloved, even if the gameplay itself is not ideal. Even if it can be real grindy, or it can be over really quick, the game outside the game element is absolutely huge. So, Tripps, of the 3 factors in that box set, do you think the box set is a must?
For me, the box set is still not a must. The game is a must, and for me, that the hobby side of it is the biggest part of it, because you can make your team and develop your board, and it really sits nicely in that niche for me. So no, the box set isn't a must. And I think the only other thing that about Dungeon Bowl is, and probably similar to yourself, Ben, it was one of the first variants of Blood Bowl I played many years ago, and it's got a little sweet space in my heart, and I've still got the original stuff, and there's no way I can ever get a miniature through one of those doors nowadays with scale creep. But it's so nice to have it back, because I never thought I would play Dungeon Bowl again.
Nope, I didn't either. Bloodtithe, same question to you.
You nailed it with the 3 categories, and I'm in the camp where if if the local and like the club scene, the club scene sounds really strange to use in this context.
Yeah.
If the
This is not your traditional
the
club
people-
scene.
Yeah, if enough players get on board with this, and if the game has enough like league and development longevity, and if it develops in a similar way to Blood Bowl 11s does, this would replace 11s for me in a league setting and club setting. Just because it engages me so much more in that case, where you say with a hobby and that you've so much more potential. I think 11s will always have its place in a tournament setting. I think 11s tournaments are great fun, and I can't see this replacing those for a tournament. Just because this feels just more casual at its core. But I'd say for me, this game is essential, but I'm with Trips. The box itself isn't.
So this is why it is such a strange. This in every way is a really old school Games Workshop release, because what they are providing us with here it's a great place to start. Like, the box is good, like you get 40% of what you need, but this release is more than just the box set. This release is a psychological permission for players. This all of a sudden allows you to go and build a bunch of stuff that you could have done anyway. Like, there was nothing stopping you, but having the permission, having it be validated, now activates it in a way that it goes from being niche old school to now like a thing that is known, that is real. But the box has nothing to do with that, with the exception of the rulebook, which you don't need, because the Dungeon Bomb rules are very simple. Have a dungeon, teleporters, treasure chests, rosters. Like, that's it. That is what Dungeon Bowl is. Everything else is down to you as the players, and that's such a strange thing, as you do not need this box. If you want to start with Dungeon Bowl, I recommend it massively. You get the core of 2 fancy teams, so 2 hobby projects, a bunch of tiles that you don't need to make yourself, and a rulebook that I'm hoping is full of cool lore and strange rules. Like, that is just a wicked combination. It is a bit of a shame that you can't just pay £30 for whichever one of those ones that you want. Like, if you want an easy dungeon, £30 for an easy dungeon, they'd sell tons. If you want a mixed team, then £25 for a mixed team would be sweet. And if you just want the rulebook for all that stuff, £30 for that would be a perfectly fine thing for people to get. So it's got all 3 of those elements in one box, and they are at odds with each other a little bit. And I think that's why there's so much apprehension, is because people want to spend 60 to get the 2 out of the 3 that they want. They don't want to pay the 90 because one of those pieces they don't need. And I think you'd agree with us guys here, we don't need those teams.
No.
I'd love the book. I'd love the tiles. I think I'd probably buy 3 sets of tiles. If they were like, hey, here's Dungeon Bowl tiles, I'd be like, boom, let's get club sorted. Let's get 3 tiles. Let's build a mega dungeon. I don't really need those teams. And there will be other players out there like, the teams are cool, I just want the book. Or, I can build a dungeon. I've already got a dungeon. Like, I don't have an ogre team. Like, this is a cool modelling opportunity. So that's why it doesn't feel like an auto win. But it is such a cool prospect. And this will be one of 2 things for you. A cool, fun thing to bring out for Blood Bowl every now and again. Maybe you just use the dungeon tiles. Maybe the dungeon tiles end up being used for Warcry and it ends up in another box. I mean, that's how the original Dungeon Bowl and that stuff happened. I'd be like, opening a copy of Space Hulk and I'd be like, hey, it's my Warhammer Quest tiles. That's how DVDs, like before DVDs landed, tiles were the things that ended up in different boxes. Yeah. You might have to be of a certain age to appreciate that one, but it's very true. Or it's going to be the beginning of your new hobby. Like, Blood Bowl's wicked. It's a pretty decent competitive game, and it's a pretty friendly vanilla game to get into. Like, you play a game of Blood Bowl. A game of Blood Bowl is a game of Blood Bowl is a game of Blood Bowl. You set up, you play. But if you're a Dungeoneer, there's so much to explore. If you like the RP version, if you like the Dungeons and Dragons version, if you're a tournament, if you're a TO, like someone who, if you're a dungeon master, this is the beginning of a community. It's just whether or not you have time. And that's the biggest factor. Like, time is the fourth factor, isn't it? A 4-dimensional space. You got XYZ, which is hobby, game, and story. And the last piece, the fourth dimension, is time. And I think that basically sums up where we are with this release.
Yeah. My closing thing on it is, if on the rare chance someone from Games Workshop who happens to be in charge of any of this listens to this, please just, £5 PDF. If the Dungeon Bowl rules are like, quite minor, please put that in a separate £5 PDF. So many existing hobbyists will buy that.
All
so
buy
many.
it.
Yeah. So many just want to do their pitch. They have their teams already ready to go.
Yeah.
Just want to know the rules.
I think
Please.
I'm surprised I'm genuinely surprised the book isn't separate. Like, the core rulebook landed at the same time as the box game. I'm quite surprised that it isn't, and it may be because they want to shift some of the plastic teams. And you know what? That's fine. Like, mixed teams are wicked, so this gives us a great angle into what we want to do. So super happy with that. But yeah, I love it. Trips, any final thoughts for you on Dungeon Bowl?
I think the final thought for me is, we're really glad that it's coming. We're really glad it's coming before Christmas.
Oh gosh,
I think there's. We sort of mentioned earlier today when we were talking about it, the timeline from this is a thing to this is going to be a thing we have in our hands is incredibly short for GW, and therefore is wonderful. And more is better in this case, and it might not be perfect, the box set, but it's better than not having it.
And I think that Christmas morning boxed game, this will be a lot of fun. Like, you will have a lot of fun playing this game, and it's one of the few games you can get these days that's pretty self-contained but insanely expandable. Like, at that, you don't get that a lot. I think, you play Hero Quest or something and you've got like 2 missions and it's kind of like, and we're going to do the same thing again, and we're going to do the same thing again. Now let's build a long dungeon, let's build a square dungeon, let's swap teams, let's try a different build. Like, there's just a ton of replayability, and this will be the game I use when I have kids to trick them into playing Blood Bowl. So I'm going to be like, let's go explore a dungeon, because I think it's the best way. But genuinely, use 3 balls and use a time limit. I cannot stress this enough. Try a few vanilla games, then just play one Tribal Wizard Cup version. Just try it. 16 turns. When you open a chest, on a 4+, there's a ball. On a 1 to 3, it explodes. Once 3 balls are revealed, the rest of them are just waiting to explode. Play the game out to completion. If someone scores a casualty, if someone scores a touchdown, they go back to your reserves. You can bring them on via a teleporter on your next turn. You got 16 turns. Leave the left route, focus on the middle and the right, pick your lanes, bash it through. It's fine. It's a great way to play it. Like, it's just, and that's how good Dungeon Bowl is like, you can tweak it, you can make different things. It's so good. Right, guys, shall we wrap up for the day?
Yeah, I think so. I'm being summoned to watch the Drag Race final. So,
I just will say one more for everyone listening. Is remember it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, and for those of you running out of hobby supplies, good weekend to get a 3D printer, get some bits and pieces, top up your supplies at a slightly cheaper price.
That's actually a really great shout. And if you get the opportunity, use your friendly local gaming store, especially if they've got a sale on the go, because it's always great to have somewhere to play. FLGS do a great job of that, hopefully, anyway. Heard some good stories and some bad stories. But anyway, I want to say a big thank you to everybody for jumping in, watching with us and hanging out. And thanks very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. And hopefully, if everything goes to plan, next week we'll be back with several Dungeon Bowl games, which I'm super excited.
Can't wait.
Yeah, Thursday should be good fun. Anyway, right, gonna disappear. Ian, Ben, thank you very much for hanging out and talking Blood Bowl. And it's 10:20, which is pretty early for us on a podcast night as well. So that's cool. So I am going to go watch the NFL now. Guys, thank you very much. Happy blocking.
Bye.
Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead Podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.